Have you ever wondered why saving more money still leaves you feeling like you're not going nowhere? And as you continue to see the prices rise, while your income is still staying the same. But what if I were to submit to you that saving more money is silently making you poor? And if you don't learn how to stop this from happening, then you're going to find yourself year after year losing more money than you're actually making within that year. So today in this video, I'm going to show you how to stop playing catch up and finally get your money to start working harder for you than you do for your money. So you can start building generational wealth for you and your family in 2026. So let's jump right into it. So why saving cash is making you more poor? Well, you see, there has to be first a mindset shift that we have to understand what is actually causing this to actually happen. Because you see, we've been taught by society that somehow working harder for your money is somehow the most efficient way in order for your money to actually come into you. And then what you're supposed to do with that money that does come in, that you're supposed to somehow save it into a bank so that nothing actually happens to it. But you see, the wealthy have a different mindset and a different strategy altogether in terms of what they choose to do with their money. Because while most people are working hard for their money, the wealthy people are actually putting their money to work so that it's actually working harder for them. Because you see, if you're finding yourself having to trade your time in order to make money, then now you start to realize that your money that you're able to produce is now becoming more limited. But when you're actually making a decision on actually allowing your money to work harder for you, then you're actually allowing it to be invested so that you can create the leverage that you need to work beyond time itself. And this is why the earlier that you start, then as time goes by, it'll be able to create that momentum of being able to compound on the principle of what's been given. And so I know at this point you may be even wondering, so where do you actually start if you don't feel like you're rich yet? And before I even get into the opportunity that most people are missing, you have to understand that the difference between being poor versus rich is not based off of what you have. Now, yes, it is accumulation of the things that over time you produce, but it's not where it actually starts. It actually starts from a mentality of you actually owning whether you're going to be poor or you're going to actually be rich. Because I can give you an example. If the government, for whatever reason, decided to create a bill that forces every single individual to go down to the same level of income, and let's just say they're all being able to now make $5,000 a month, I guarantee you, as time continues, those same individuals that were able to produce the wealth years ago would then eventually start to create that massive gap once more. But in that moment in time, are they considered rich based off of what they have? Absolutely not. So now we have to understand that it's not necessarily about what you have in that moment is what makes you rich. It's actually what you actually continue to do with the resources of what has been given to you and learn to use it in the most effective way that allows you to continue to keep increasing upon what you already have. And so that's what it actually means to having already a rich mentality, because regardless of what you have, you're going to find ways of how it can be multiplied based off of what has already been given. But if you already have a poor mindset, you believe that whatever it is that you have now is limited and that your current situation is something that you don't have any control of. And so you rather just settle for what it is that you've been given or even have. And so literally you can become rich today by simply starting to learn what the people that are rich now visually, what were they actually doing that actually created that over time for them to be able to experience what is already within inside of themselves to actually eventually start reflecting based on what their beliefs are in real life now. And so now let's jump into the opportunity that most people are missing because they don't have the right mindset, is because the money that you decide to put into the bank is not making you the money that you would like it for it to make. And so what if you were able to put your money into a financial vehicle that actually allows you to grow your money as you're investing it? And so that's where we're coming into this opportunity where there is an opportunity for you to actually put in $7,000 every year, no matter whether you're a W-2 employee or you're an entrepreneur or even have a side hustle. Because the government is giving everybody an opportunity for them to put their money into a retirement account. And so at this point, you may even be asking, well, what kind of account is this that actually you can actually use? And so there's two different retirement accounts that you can specifically have. And one is a Roth IRA account and the other one is a traditional IRA. And in both of these accounts, it allows your money to grow, but just in different ways. And so let's now start to talk about which one actually allows your money to actually grow later. And so here are the pros and cons of the Roth IRA account. So specifically, you're allowing your money to actually grow over time without having to actually have, no taxes that you have to now pay because of the growth of your actual account. And so as you allow this money to continue to grow, you have the opportunity that by the age of 59, you can now actually pull this money tax-free without having to worry about having to pay those taxes on the growth of that account. But now, if you're expecting it to grow more in the future, then you might not necessarily want to do that because you're limiting the growth of that money immediately when you pull those investments out. Now, the cons that you need to know about this account as well is that for the amount that you're able to contribute in per year, you're not able to actually lower your tax income for that year to being able to get a tax write-off today. And there is a limitation on how much money you're actually able to make per year to allow you to actually contribute into this account. And so if you're filing for single and you're making $150,000 per year under that amount, then now you actually have the opportunity to invest into this Roth IRA account. But if you're filing married and joined, then the income between both of you has to be under $236,000 in order for you to continue to invest into this Roth IRA account. And so now the question is, so why would anyone choose the other account? So the other account of what it's been able to provide is that for the amount of what you're able to contribute into this account, you are able to actually receive a tax write-off for the amount of what you're able to contribute. And as well, it's easier for somebody to be able to qualify for a traditional IRA account. But what you do have to know about this account is that unlike the Roth IRA account, where you don't have to actually pay any taxes on the growth of that account, you actually have to pay taxes later based off of the proceeds of that actual account. And the biggest one that you need to know about is by the age of 73, they actually start to force you to actually withdraw your money year after year, which actually means that the money that you have now invested into that IRA account, you now have to actually start selling off your investments in order to make that withdrawal, which is now actually going to create a huge tax event because you had to withdraw that money. And so these are important things for you to know about these accounts, because specifically, it is going to determine what account you actually choose based off of your goals that you have financially. And so if you're wanting to build financial wealth later without having to get taxed at all, then a Roth IRA account is something that you may want to actually invest in. But if you're wanting to experience the tax breaks now, then a traditional Roth IRA account may be something that you might want to look into. But you have to remember, it starts first with you identifying what your goals is financially or where you're wanting to go, which again is going to determine what account you specifically want to go with. But unfortunately, this is where most people still mess up. Because you see, the biggest mistake that most people make is that just because you're putting your money into a Roth IRA account doesn't mean necessarily that you're investing. Because you see, most people are treating a Roth IRA account as if it's a savings account, and that's not how you're supposed to use it. Because just because you're putting money into the Roth IRA account doesn't mean that it's actually going to grow just because now it's in that account. And so what you got to make sure that you're not doing is just allowing it to sit there and expecting it for it to grow. And so you got to make sure that you're actually investing into that money or what's actually inside of that account so that it's actually able to start working on your behalf year after year. And so now the question that you may be asking is, so what do you actually need to invest inside of this account? And the great news is most people believe that they're on some kind of deadline where they have to, by the end of the year of December the 31st, that they have to actually try to find a way to actually put that $7,000 into that actual account. But they actually give you the opportunity to still contribute of what you was able to do last year up until April the 15th. But what you got to make sure that you're doing is that it will give you an option of whether you want to contribute that money for 2025, or do you want to continue to actually contribute that money into 2026? And so now, if you're only able to contribute $7,000 per year, the most that you're supposed to be doing is actually getting it to $7,000 per year. And so how can you create a plan so that every single year you're actually able to contribute that $7,000? Well, so what we're going to simply do is actually figure out how much money that we would actually need on a monthly basis in order for that to be actually possible for us to do. And so now you can start breaking up your goals in a way that doesn't look like all of a sudden you just have to dump $7,000 into an account and not being able to touch it. But we're going to get into the strategy of that later. But as an estimate, $583 on a monthly basis would allow you to actually continue to keep building upon this account so that you can make sure that you're always being able to at least contribute $7,000 per year to maximize on the growth of that account. And so now that we made it easier on our minds to being able to contribute into this account strategically, we now can actually start looking into what specifically to actually invest into so that we can put our money to work. And so what you want to do is the portfolio base of your account. You actually want to invest 80% of that money that is in your Roth IRA account or a traditional IRA account into the S&P 500. Now, the reason why this is going to be beneficial for you is because the S&P 500 actually has 500 companies that are actually grouped into one location that gives most people the opportunity to at least be able to start to see compound growth in general on their account. Because on average, the S&P 500 has grown at least 10% every single year. Because it's already doing the diversification for you to invest into these 500 companies all in one location. And so this is why you want this to be your base of your portfolio so that you can actually get your money to actually grow year by year. But the question I know you may be asking is, can we actually do better than the average of just 10%? And so this is where things start to actually get deeper. It's because if we now know that the S&P 500 actually has 500 different companies within this one location, then now we can actually start using some critical thinking. That what if we were able to actually look at what is actually pulling the most weight within the S&P 500 that's actually what's really giving it the most amount of returns. And so what if we were able to pull out the 5 top companies within the S&P 500 that's actually giving it the most returns, and then we use the leftover of that 20% to invest into those 5 companies at 4% of those companies, so that now we have the actual potential to actually even beating the yearly returns on the S&P 500 itself. Because we're investing into the top 5 companies that are actually pulling the most weight within the S&P 500. And so the question that most people now at this point have is how much to actually buy or where to even buy from. And what I will tell you, timing does matter. And most people will tell you that on a weekly basis, just make sure that you're just investing portions of your check or whatever income that is coming in, just continue to keep it on a cycle so that you don't have to worry about missing a week or a month or whatever the case may be. But the issue with that particular strategy is it does matter where you actually are buying into the S&P 500. And so if you don't know where you're buying from because you're buying at a wrong time, because you don't actually understand the price levels, has a lot to do with the growth of your account, then it could actually start making it difficult for your actual account to actually being profitable for you in the future. And this is why I did a recent video specifically showing people how to learn when to actually buy from these locations. And so I did a video that was actually called the Stop Guessing, and that you can use this chart strategy to know where to buy and to sell from so that you can continue to see growth on your actual account itself. And so you can be sure to actually check out that video so that it actually can show you how to actually make the most returns when it's time for you to actually invest what you already have in that account into these companies. And so now let's go over the most important mistake that most people are actually still misusing the Roth IRA account itself too. Because you see, most people are still allowing what society is telling them, that you just need to continue to keep saving the money of what you actually have coming in. And so then what they start doing is treating the Roth IRA account exactly like a savings account. And as we mentioned before, that just because you're putting money into the Roth IRA account is not actually what allows it to grow. It's actually what you actually do with it inside of that account by investing it into companies that are in the stock market. But the other misconception that most people have, based off of not being able to touch that money until the age of 59, to being able to not have any tax that gets taken out from those proceeds, they feel like they can't actually have access to that money just because of that reason. But that's actually one of the biggest misconceptions that most people have, which is why they're not allowing their money to continue to keep building more wealth outside of that account. And so if that's the case, then how can we continue to use this money without actually destroying our portfolio? And so that actually gets into the wealth loop that most wealthy people are actually using when they are actually investing into this Roth IRA account. And so what they're able to do is something that I want to make sure that you guys understand this, is I want to break down the difference between borrowing from your account and borrowing against your account. And so when you borrow from your account, and let's say that you have $100,000 that is now within your Roth IRA account, if you wanted to borrow from your account, you now have to actually sell off your investments in order to make that liquid in order for you to use it. And the issue is that is going to actually create a taxable event that now, based off of what you were willing to withdraw out, you're actually now going to get taxed on how much actually you took out. And so that's not going to be the best option for you. But what you can do is that you can actually borrow against your account. And this actually allows you to keep the money that you have invested into that account, allow it to continue to keep growing for you, but actually getting a tax credit that you can actually deposit it into your account of your bank. And then now you actually have access to this money, because when you borrow against your account, you're essentially saying that you're using what you already have in your Roth IRA account. You're using it as collateral that if anything happens, you still actually have a way to pay that amount back. And this is the fantastic thing that wealthy people do, is because see, now you have the opportunity to become your actual own bank, because you're borrowing against yourself of income that you wouldn't have had otherwise. But now you have the opportunity to use it to actually access the capital, but to then simply use that money to actually invest into assets that can give you more returns, like real estate. And imagine if you're able to get a $200,000 house, let's just say. Well, you actually then can actually use a home equity line of credit to then take out some of the equity within that home, to use a portion of that to actually pay back the amount of what you actually took out from your retirement account, and then replacing that with getting another asset of another real estate property. Because you see, you don't have to now wind up having to use all of the money that you actually took out from that home equity line of credit. You can actually just now put down a deposit for that new property, so that then you're able to now have another cash flowing asset that is now paying you month after month from you renting it out. But now, because you've already paid yourself back the money of what you actually borrowed against your account from, you can then now continue to keep rinsing and repeating this cycle to continue to actually increase your wealth building, while also increasing your cash flow, what you're actually able to now actually touch liquid month after month. And so these are these strategies that I want to make sure that it's clear. It may be new to us, but wealthy people have been doing this for generations after generations and passing it on from their kids and their kids' kids, so that they can continue to allow this account to continue to keep growing in the investments of what they have invested it into, but then being able to pass it off into their children so they can continue to keep leveraging this account, while also being able to now have access to the capital to continue to keep using those resources to go out and buy more assets so they can keep repeating the cycle. And so the most thing that I want to share with you is the opportunities are out there. But the thing is, if you're not training yourself to being able to see the opportunities, then you can't execute based off of what you don't know. And so what we got to remember is that the money that you're trying to save, the reasons as to why it's making you more poor is because, as you see, everything around you is starting to increase based off of you actually being able to live the way that you live now. But if your income itself is not growing, then it's going to now make it harder for you to continue to keep having the lifestyle that you now currently have. And that's not on top of the actual resource itself of money itself is constantly depreciating over time, unless You break that cycle by allowing your money to be put in a financial vehicle that allows it to have the potential to continue to keep growing over time. And so this is the trap that the banks want to make sure that they can use your money to go out and do the strategies of what we're talking about now. By being able to leverage your money because you don't know what to do with it, and they can go out and make millions of dollars with your money, but only giving you back 0.00001% a year. And so this is why saving your money is making you poor, because if it's not being invested, then it is becoming less valuable over time. And so if this video has blessed you in any kind of way, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, because these are the common mistakes that most people do on a day-to-day basis just simply because they don't know. And so we got to make sure that we're not just always trading our time in order to make the money, but we start flipping it and putting it in reverse of the money that is now starting to come in. We're finding ways of how we can allow that money to actually start now working for us so that we're not always having to work hard for our money. And so this is how you can actually win and build generational wealth in 2026 so that you and your family are able to actually experience the life that God is willing to reveal to you.